Larry, some people were really upset that earlier today Trump dropped the F-bomb. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing effing well.
Well, seriously, though, do you think that are people upset about that? Is it inappropriate for the president
No.
to use the F word in a press gaggle, or it doesn't matter?
Well, I don't like where he used it. Okay. I don't think that, frankly, Prime Minister Netanyahu warranted that. If anything, Netanyahu is probably using the F bomb with Trump right now, but we can talk about that. But yeah, there's a time and a place to use the F word. You don't want to use it too much. You don't want to use it like comedians do at the comedy club, in Los Angeles or in New York or Washington, D.C. But there's a time and a place for the F word, frankly.
Yeah. And I mean, there's been a lot of controversy. Trump is saying that he's obliterated the nuclear program and there's already a ceasefire, but then obviously he dropped the F-bomb after there was still an exchange of munitions. I mean, what do you think? Is this war over or just starting or what?
No, it's not over. It is, you're right, it's just starting. But, here's the thing you really can't read Trump, okay? And I give him a lot of credit. I think he did the right thing in attempting to take out those nuclear facilities at the three sites. It remains to be seen whether they were totally obliterated, but even if they're not, they did a lot of damage. So that's excellent. And his deception that he used was well used. I was egging him on to talk clearly and to do things quicker. I think he should have done it quicker. It's now likely that 400 pounds of enriched uranium to 60% had been moved out for one of those various sites. They were also stored in more than one. But to then declare a ceasefire a day later, when obviously Israel didn't want a ceasefire, I think was the wrong thing to do. And that's constructive criticism because it's like a cockroach. If you call the exterminator into your house and he leaves one cockroach, the colony is going to grow back. So what Trump was saying, a week or so earlier, that we have to take out the Ayatollah, the supreme leader, is accurate. We have to remove these people. They have to be exterminated, for lack of a better word. I hate to use that word because that was the word that was used, by Hitler. But the fact is, these people that run this regime, not the Iranian people, but they are like cockroaches and they're evil. And the only way you're going to end this is to eliminate them. And it's not like Iraq. This is not Iraq. Iraq was relatively unsophisticated. The people, they, really were disorganized in a lot of ways under the rule of Saddam Hussein. But the Iranian people are very well educated. They're extremely bright. They're lying in waiting to come back to take control of that country. And frankly, we should have been arming them all of these years. What the hell has our CIA been doing? They should be getting arms to these people to finish the job because the Iranians have already declared they're coming back. They're not giving up on enriching uranium or having a nuclear weapon. Not at all. And then I don't understand yesterday when Iran shoots missiles at our base in Qatar, why you would say to them,
Well, they told them they were coming,
thank
right?
you. Why would you say, say something else, but don't say thank you, okay? Because people could have been killed. And then, of course, there were Israelis killed after the ceasefire. So I understand what Trump's doing. And I love the president. I really do. This is constructive criticism. But it looks to me like he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. He's never going to get it. They'll never give it to Donald Trump. Frankly, they won't give it to any white guy, for that matter. You can give it to Obama, but if he thinks he's going to get the Peace Prize from Nobel, he can forget that one. So move on, get rid of these cockroaches, destroy them, and let's let the Iranians come in and establish a new government.
But wait a minute, Larry. Let me ask you a question. Because you said, what is the CIA doing? Isn't it true that the CIA originally started messing around in Iran, assassinated Mossadegh and then brought in the Shah and created all this problem through the 70s and everything. Isn't it sort of like every single one of these things that we've done, whether it's Vietnam or Iraq or Afghanistan or Libya, it almost seems like a pimple on the forehead. The second you pick at it, you just made it worse, and everything you do is just getting worse and worse.
I think you're right. I guess when I used the word CIA, I meant a competent CIA,
that doesn't exist.
Semi-honest CIA, which you never had.
No.
The CIA, assassinated Allende in Chile.
Right.
The CIA assassinated John Kennedy, I believe. Everybody believes that. I believe the FBI was behind the assassination of Martin Luther King. I write about it in my book. It takes a revolution, wake up America. I go through this. You cannot trust the government at all. And the CIA has also been incompetent. It's not at the level of the Mossad or MI16 in Great Britain. It's a bunch of corrupt individuals, a bunch of fools, frankly, that sold us, for instance, the last outrage on the war in Iraq, said there was weapons of mass destruction when there was no weapons of mass destruction.
Well, but that's what I mean.
When I say the CIA, I meant some entity that hopefully someday will come to pass, which is effective and which is at least semi-honest.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get that. I mean,
Probably.
So you just raised an important point that, they told us that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Then it turned out that there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, but yet they still blew up Iraq. So that was pretty bad. But now they're saying, we've got weapons of mass destruction in Iran. I don't know. I'm questioning if bombing something like this is the way you're going to get rid of it. Something you and I were discussing before we went on air. Iran has billions of dollars. Couldn't they just buy some sort of nuclear weapon from North Korea or Pakistan or some former Soviet republic? There's all these different suitcase-sized nukes that have existed. I mean, this stuff has been around since the 60s. Somebody's got to know how to sell this to them, right?
Yeah, I mean, they probably have something at this point, and if they don't have it now, they can get it. There'll be countries perhaps that will offer it to them in light of what's happening. So yes, it is a significant risk, and that's why you have to eliminate the regime. You go to the head of the snake. You get rid of it. These people, I hate to say this, but they're subhuman people. They're not human people. They're the disciples of the devil, and and Trump got it right, a week and a half ago when he basically suggested that we should assassinate the supreme leader and all the way down. And that's what the Israelis have been doing. And we should have let them do it. And I believe they'll get back to it again. This ceasefire is not going to last. There's no way it will last. So, frankly, I think, and here's another topic that we can talk about. Trump, to some extent, was trying to get, a significant contingent of his MAGA supporters off his back. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, several others. And I wish that people would talk more clearly. I've been out there on X a lot lately trying to talk clearly. Even Mark Levin hedges it. He doesn't want to offend Trump. He never says it straight up that we have to assassinate the regime because he wants to have his, in with the president, okay?
But I mean, isn't that explosive, like Rogue Nation type stuff, just going around assassinating different people?
Well, sometimes you have to do it. The scientists did it or tried to do it with Hitler. Some people in the military.
They didn't.
It's a judgment call. But that's what Israel's been doing. They've been taking out generals. They've been taking out intelligence officials. They've been taking out nuclear scientists. Why not the supreme leader? What gives him supremacy, so to speak, in that regard?
Larry, something some people have been saying is that Iran was trying to assassinate Trump. I haven't seen any evidence of that, certainly not in Butler, Pennsylvania, or that guy on the golf course. Those guys were just American guys trying to assassinate him, it seems. Maybe even the CIA, FBI. I mean, I've been in all these lawsuits with the Butler County, or rather the Beaver County SWAT team and everything. I certainly don't think that Iran is interacting with them. And they're covering it up.
Well, you may be right, but I'm sure Iran behind the scenes, now maybe they did stop a terrorist attack, to assassinate the president. Maybe they didn't want to raise it at that time. because they didn't want to create a situation that would require massive retaliation by the United States. This happens frequently. I'll give you a couple stories here. Is that years ago I represented a Navy lieutenant commander named John Daly, who was flying sorties with the Canadian Air Force over Puget Sound to surveil the Russian trawler fleet that was spying on our submarine base. That's where our nuclear submarine base is, in Seattle, Puget Sound. And he was lased by one of these Russian trawlers. And it was during the Clinton administration. And the Clinton administration wouldn't own up to the fact that Russia had actually attacked our serviceman,
Wow.
lieutenant
With a laser.
commander, with a laser, and blinded him
Whoa.
over Puget Sound because they didn't want to have to react against the Russians. That was Clinton.
Because they didn't want to admit they had lasers, or what?
Well, we know that the Russians have lasers. They're the world's leader in lasers, actually. But we didn't want to have to do anything vis-a-vis Russia at the time.
Military response.
Yeah, it would have forced their hands. So, I represented him. I mean, they tried to drum him out of the Navy. We at least stopped that. He finally got some medical care, but they would never admit that he was hit by a laser. And that's typical.
Wow.
Then the case went to trial is that we sued. This is during the day that Judicial Watch brought hard-hitting cases, more than they do today, which are few and far between. They're doing mostly Freedom of Information Act. When I ran it, we had hard-hitting cases. So we sued the Russian trawler company on behalf of John Daly, and it was in front of a judge, a very leftist judge in Seattle, that in the middle of the jury trial actually invited Russian judges into the court in front of the jury to observe. It was, theater of the absurd.
Wow.
And, it's very leftist Seattle. We know what's going on out there, in recent years with Black Lives Matter, Antifa, riots over with the radical Palestinians and everything else. So, that's the story. And let me tell you about the suitcase bombs, too. We can go back to that. I became very close. I never formally represented it, but in effect, I did. Someone by the name of Colonel, I think his name was Stanislav Lunev, who was a member of the Russian intelligence service, Soviet Union at the time, who defected. And he told us that he had actually assisted in bringing suitcase bombs into the United States, nuclear bombs. And we, of course, did the same with regard to the Soviet Union. They were pre-positioned, in terms of whether you need them. And Iran could get a hold of one of these things, potentially.
Right.
And maybe it has it. They were on the black market, and they would not give up enough radiation or explosion to take out more than one city. You could do it in a very discreet way. So that was, in and around the time period of 9/11. So the United States was very concerned that those things were somehow pre-positioned in the United States. And so this is the risk that is out there. And if you don't take out the regime, if you don't, eliminate the leaders, they're going to be back like the Force in Star Wars. They're not going away. They're on a religious jihad. They believe that dying will be martyrdom for them, and they're not worried about that. Besides, the Supreme leader's so old he doesn't really care at this point. He might as well light a match and blow up everything. So, we really have to take them out. Trump has to face reality. And if he's not willing to assist the Israelis, let the Israelis do it, because they could do it relatively quickly.
Larry, look at this. The fake news from NBC is telling us that suitcase nuclear weapons are probably a myth. That's idiotic. They have pictures of them.
Well, why would they be a myth?
I don't know, but NBC likes to lie about stuff.
Yeah, no, well, they're all liars. NBC is one of the main liars.
Yeah, they're saying that it's a topic that lends itself to movies. Wait a minute.
This is interesting. Right after Trump's successful strike, and we do take our hats off to him and we thank him, and I do believe that Trump's a great president. So the critique that I give you today is not meant to be seen that I'm anti-Trump. I'm very pro-Trump. I would do anything within my power legally and ethically to help him, and I've offered many, many times. But there was a review that came out, a film critic in LA, about Top Gun Maverick, with Tom Cruise, which came out in 2022. And it basically was about taking out the Iran nuclear sites. It was a great movie. I don't watch a movie usually more than once, and I don't watch movies unless I'm on an airplane and have nothing to do at the time, generally speaking. But I've actually watched this one 4 times.
It's a great, seen it yet.
It's a great, great movie.
He actually flew the plane. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was flying the plane. They had all kinds of special cameras in the plane, and he was flying.
It had a 98% approvable rating. I forget what they call it, in Hollywood
Rotten
parlance.
Tomatoes.
Rotten Tomatoes, yeah. So this guy comes out a couple days or a day or so after Trump successfully puts off that puts out that strike with the B-2s. Oh, it really wasn't a great movie. It really didn't rate that high. It was fiction, blah, 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 blah. And of course, the left hates Tom Cruise, as Hollywood hates Tom Cruise. I mean, here you got a great actor with tremendous charisma, whether he's a Scientologist or not. And the guy's never been nominated for Academy Award. That's typical Hollywood. They don't like
Well,
him because he told Hollywood they all need psychological counseling. Right.
somebody once did an interview with Tom Cruise, or like a some sort of a write up where they said that he's out of all the people he's ever met in Hollywood, he's got his head screwed on straighter than anybody else. Look at this. You're right. 99% from the audience and 96% from reviewers. I guess I got to see it.
No, it's really a great movie, and action packed. It makes you proud to be an American. He reunites himself with his old girlfriend in Top Gun.
Oh, Kelly LeBrock, isn't she like just looking
No, it
like
was
a
a different
bag
one.
lady now?
They came up with a better looking one,
Oh,
actually.
okay.
So, but it's a fantastic movie. It really is. So this guy, reduces it down to 50 or whatever. I forget what, but that's typical Hollywood because they didn't want to even admit that Hollywood would make one patriotic movie every now and then. We know what comes out of Hollywood, mostly perverted, you know, anti-Judeo-Christian, degrading stuff, that really has destroyed our culture in many ways.
Actually, it wasn't Kelly LeBrock. It was Kelly
Jennifer Garner,
McGillis. Kelly McGillis was the girlfriend in Top Gun.
yeah, Jennifer something was
Yeah,
the
somebody
actor.
had a picture of her today, and she's not really looking like Tom Cruise material nowadays.
Well, she's got
Larry,
older. She's older, yeah.
yeah, everybody gets older. I don't know. Tom Cruise has managed to. I just saw Mission Impossible. It's amazing. He's 63. I think at 63, if you tripped on the sidewalk, you'd be at home for 3 weeks. He's getting hit in the face with scuba tanks and going swimming and all kinds of stuff. Larry, the other person who's looking pretty rough is AOC is getting pretty fat. They had a picture of her, with uh, Trump at McDonald's and AOC ordering. It was pretty funny.
So her derriere has gotten a lot bigger. Is that what you're saying?
Well, she's out campaigning with Zoran Mamdani, and I think people are rightly concerned as a communist that he might become the next mayor here in New York City. And there was just a picture of her. It's hot. It was over 100 degrees in New York today. So, she's wearing some kind of summer outfit, showing her arms and everything. And I mean, listen, it's easy to be hot when you're 25, but she's 30 something now. So she's kind of pushing her luck, I think.
Yeah, I mean, at one point, I remember she said she thought even the Republicans were after her. They all wanted her. But I mean,
Oh, they're in love with
she's
her, is
cute.
what
She's
she
got a
was saying.
cute face, and that's the only thing that gets her through. The fact that she's so stupid, is that she's relatively cute,
She's packing
and
on the pounds, Larry.
yeah, well, I think Latin women are very attractive, but they got to lay off the rice.
She was getting in trouble for having a lot of expenditures from her congressional budget for taco parties and dance lessons and all kinds of things. I think people get into Congress and just start spending money like crazy. The other one who is really saying a lot of stupid stuff is Jasmine Crockett. She's upset. Well, let's get back to the legal standpoint. A lot of people are criticizing what Trump did, saying, oh, it's a declaration of war and it's unconstitutional. Turley, for one, came out and said that's not true. There's a lot of historical precedent where presidents are doing these strikes without the congressional approval. What about that?
Well, I don't really care whether it's unconstitutional or not, frankly. We have a constitution, but no one follows the constitution, of course. That's a joke.
But we
But you
have
got to
to.
do what you got to do. And you remember Reagan, with Iran-Contra.
Yeah.
And I used to debate my good friend Craig Gillen, who was number two, with Lawrence Walsh, the Ron Great prosecutor. I went to law school with Craig. He's a tremendous criminal defense lawyer, nice person. etc. But we would debate at Houston's in Georgetown every night. And, I would say to him, I don't care, frankly, if Reagan did go around the Boland Amendment, which, also required congressional approval to be messing around in Central America. Reagan made a mistake in that, he did a quid pro quo with the Iranians. So that was mostly Oliver North that did it behind his back, I believe.
Yeah, didn't Reagan not know anything about it? There's that famous video where they're asking him about Iran-Contra for the first time in the Rose Garden. I think Ronald Reagan was an actor, and to me, Larry, that was a very authentic delivery when he said, I don't know what you're talking about. I think he didn't know. That was all George Bush doing Iran-Contra, wasn't it?
I think he didn't know. I don't think he did. They kept him in the dark. And I think what Reagan probably said to Oliver North and company, here's what I want done. You go figure out how to do it, right? And he wanted to get arms to the Contras in Nicaragua. And he was successful in doing that. But in so doing, he made deals with the Iranian regime through Oliver North. And I don't believe that he knew of that that's what North was doing. But in any event, no, to be honest, I don't think it does violate the Constitution. In an emergency situation, the president should be able to act. If he had gone to Congress, it would have leaked. It would have put American lives in danger. This was a very limited military operation. If we do declare war, and go all out with Iran, then go to Congress, get their approval. And if you don't get their approval, do it anyway, frankly.
I think what Turley is mostly focused on is that there's precedent where, these people in Congress didn't say anything when Clinton did it or when Obama did similar stuff. This might be it.
I'm waiting to hear as much as anyone else. I've told you over and over again everything that I know about all that took place, and I'm waiting to find out.
Senator Norway says you ought to check your memory about your statement that you knew nothing about illegal fundraising within your administration, sir.
Now, this isn't it.
Yeah, what we did is we sold arms to the Iranian mullahs for money to funnel arms to the Contras.
Mark Rich, right?
Yeah, and, I frankly think it was clever, but, not with Iran. It should have been done in a different way. And, at that time you had Frank Church, a Democrat, who, viewed the world in a Pollyanna way. Reagan had to do what he had to do to stop the spread of communism in Central America. And I think we owe him a debt of gratitude. I mean, Reagan was probably, him and Trump, the two greatest presidents of my lifetime. Reagan, had the added benefit of being very classy. Everybody liked him, but he did what he had to do. Now Trump, is rougher, but is equally as great, and he does what he has to do, and he talks in the language of today, which is why the kids are now voting for him. They like the trash talk, frankly, and that's just the world we live in today. But they are two great presidents. There's no doubt about it. People have forgotten about Ronald Reagan. It's basically my generation that remembers him the best. And he broke the back of the Soviet Union. And unfortunately, along came Vladimir Putin later. But it was certainly a great achievement at the time.
Yeah.
And these are the kinds of things that, I'm an international lawyer. That's my background, essentially. I saw the corruption doing international trade in Washington, D.C., where money talks and nobody walks. And I even saw it during the Reagan years, with some of the international trade cases that were being brought, where large industries were bringing cases and fixing the results at the International Trade Commission and Commerce Department, with regard to computer chips and everything else.
Well, Larry, let me just pause you for a second because we're almost out of time here, and we're going to be continuing in our sponsor exclusive segment. People are going to be able to join us for that. If they want to get onto larryclayman.substack.com, people can find that link easily by following you on X at Larry E. Clayman. The sponsor exclusive segment will be there. It'll also be available to all of the Crowdsource the Truth sponsors. People who are following me on X can subscribe at JG_CSTT. And of course, if you're on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Larry, I want to talk to you about the unconstitutional restraining order that was illegally obtained, in my opinion, against me. It has been lifted after 2 long years yesterday, and I'm going to resume reporting on Nina Jankowicz, the individual who got that report. She's up to a lot of things that evidence in the public domain causes me to believe are illegal. I haven't proven that in court yet, but we're going to talk about a little bit of that. We'll be right back. Stay with us, everybody. Thank you.